Councillors, can I have your attention, please? I welcome you all to this meeting of the Town Planning Committee and declare the meeting open. We will commence the meeting with the following reflection. I would ask those gathered to join us for a few moments of silence as we reflect on our roles in this chamber. Please use this opportunity for reflection, prayer or thought to focus on our shared intention to work respectfully together for the well-being of our whole community. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands of Cardinia Shire, the Boonwurrung, the Wurundjeri people, and pay my respects to their elders, both past and present. We do have one apology for tonight, which is from Councillor Stephanie Davies, and I hope she is well, sitting at home, tuning in, I'm sure, watching us all. Councillors, do we have any declarations of interest to declare tonight? I note there being none. Ordinary business. The Council conducts its meetings according to the consent agenda. Councillors have advised of the matters for consideration this evening that they wish to discuss or debate. The remaining items will be adopted without discussion. The items withdrawn for tonight's proceedings are as follows. Item 5.1, T210185 PA. Construction of additional shops, alterations and partial demolition to heritage buildings, construction of a dwelling, reduction in car parking and alteration of access to a road zone category 1 at 41 to 43 Narnagoon, Longwarry Road, Garfield. Withdrawn by Councillor Moore. Councillor Moore, you have a motion that differs to the officer's recommendation. Can you please move this motion?
I thought I was projecting enough. Maybe it won't go through the system. Item 1. The proposal is an overdevelopment of the site as it is inconsistent with the protection and conservation of the heritage listed sites. Item 2. The proposal results in unreasonable parking and traffic impacts on the proposal provides insufficient on-site car parking. Item 3. The proposal is inconsistent with the vision of the Garfield Township Strategy 2002 to protect and enhance heritage values in the town centre. Item 4, the proposal shop top dwelling results in an unreasonable off-site amenity and visual bulk impacts is inconsistent with the predominant single-storey character of the area. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ross. I'll now go back to the mover, Councillor Moore, to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ross, for the second on this item. I appreciate it. And I'm sorry about the microphone part. As my role as a councillor, I've investigated this very thoroughly, with discussions with the objectors, and i.e. the Garfield Action Group, and I want to thank them for their support for their local community and the pending community issues. We have a couple of the local residents, first-timers to our council meeting tonight, and I welcome them. I had discussions also with the applicant on site, with the planners, our planners as well, highlighting the local community, what the issues were, and that's why there was a deferral last meeting, and that's what it's up now. Attempts to find a balanced and agreeable solution to this application have not been able to be achieved, even by the revised plans that were produced by the applicant. This is a large file, very complicated file, and it has a lot of scenarios with this application. So over a long period, I have digested and explored this application at length, which brought me to this change of motion. The upgrade of the Garfield Strategic Plan 2002, and I must say there is funding in the pending budgets at the moment for the upgrade to this strategy, may have an influence to the end result of these type of applications in the future, because being in 2002, the strategy is very outdated, and any future plans will be reflected in this strategic plan. So this is makes it quite difficult when you're doing planning. Remembering strategic plans are a great guide. They are a guide, but they're not the final result. They have got flexibility. Disruptions and restrictions of the operation to the existing business, namely the Cannibal Creek Bakehouse, are difficult to endure. Their development would have a major negative impact on that business in particular. I believe there are only 3 of these businesses, these wood-fired ovens in Victoria, and this is one of them in our own town of Garfield. And so it needs to be preserved. As I said prior in my statement, this would not be able to operate this if this was approved via the revised plan. So therefore, the bakehouse, the maintenance of the wood-fired stove, the wood storage in particular, there's a lot of smaller issues that may not come up on the plans, but they are there. So when you have 300 plus objectors, you have to take notice, and that's what I'm doing. I'd like to thank the objectors and the Garfield Action Group for their support for their local community. That's well noted here. I'll leave it there, Mr. Mayor. I'll allow my seconder to speak here if he prefers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. I'll now go to Councillor Ross, the seconder, to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Today I visited the site, and I must say when you walk up and down the strip of shops in the area, you can well and truly see that it would be out of character and inconsistent with the single-storey shops in the area. At the moment, we have a good balance of shops with local heritage mixed in, with people who do the shops up slightly inside and make them modern inside without losing the feel of the strip. I must say, after walking up and down and re-looking over the application and then listening to my fellow councillors, particularly Councillor Moore, speak about this project, I just think it is definitely not the right place. And the fact that 300 objectors identified with that who live locally as well, knowing their own area, I think you would be silly not to listen to those people who would have thought about it well and truly over time and considered it thoroughly. Anyway, I'll be supporting this objection to the application, and I look forward to listening to my fellow councillors share. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Do I have any other councillors that would like to speak to this item? Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Moore, thank you for withdrawing this item. It's very much appreciated by the community of Garfield, and thank you, Councillor Ross, for seconding. I've been inundated with discussions about this project, and the whole township is basically against it. And as Councillor Moore and Councillor Ross both said, there was well over 300 objections to this development. It's not in keeping with the town at all, and being as it would be a 2-storey development, there's no other 2-storey developments in the street at all. It's a quaint little town, it's a great little town, and everybody, the whole community get together. It's just a wonderful area. So I will not be supporting this application either. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Do I have any other councillors that would like to speak to this item? Councillor Radford.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Moore, for bringing this item in the proposed motion. You've done a lot of work into this, and I agree we don't always, it's not, the planners do all the hard work, and so it can be hard at times to say, sorry, we don't actually agree with that. But I completely agree with you that it is a bit of an overdevelopment. The parking will be an issue, and I think we have to take into consideration the community's feeling on this development, on the development that's proposed. So I completely support your proposed motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Radford. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to this item? Before going back to the mover, I'll just state also that I fully support Councillor Moore's alternative motion here. I think he's done a lot of due diligence in this space in investigating this and presented, I agree with your motion you've put forward. So thank you, Councillor Moore. I'll now hand it back to you to summarise.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to my fellow councillors for your input and your favourable support. I really appreciate it. I'm sure the community of Garfield would also be thankful of this. It's a difficult situation when there's a lot of emotion surrounds some of these issues, and it's very hard to keep the emotion out of a planning issue because we've got to go through the process, and it's a process we must follow. Very rarely do I go against the council staff, particularly planning. They are the wise people of this world, and they know that I respect them in every manner. And I want to pass my thanks on to Luke Connell and the planning staff for their due diligence in this lot. And I know it becomes a difficult one when it's a process we're going to go through. But when you look at what we're up against, and I want to thank my fellow councillors for their notes and support here, that the Cannibal Creek bakery and of course the Magpie and Stump Cafe that was the former cafe are items of very, very important, much importance to the landscape of Garfield's shopping strip. Being right next door to the Garfield Picture Theatre, it's in that area up the top end, right in Ritchie Street. So when you look at the loss of heritage buildings, the loss of parking and access to for the residents, the delivery vehicles just alone, the pickup and delivery of removal of rubbish in those areas when this gets developed will cause a problem. And of course the traffic and the community safety around these properties, even with the new design that's been brought up by the applicant, and I really I've got to thank the applicant for listening and actually having a shot at changing this to suit the objectives, but it just didn't come up to scratch. It didn't come up to what is needed, particularly the two-storey building, as Councillor Cameron has noted. So compromising of a building's viability is a big thing. Job losses that will go with it, and we're trying to support these businesses that are feeling the pain from this COVID, from this pandemic that we've had recently. So I want to thank my councillors again for their thoughts, and I only hope that we can get the vote across the line and get this alternative motion through. But thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. I will now put this item to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I declare that carried. Thank you. Next item is 5.2, sales and the sale and consumption of liquor, producer's licence in association with industry, microbrewery, and a reduction of car parking requirements at 1/9 South East Boulevard. Withdrawn by Councillor Cameron. And Councillor Cameron, you have a motion that differs from the officer's recommendation. Can you please move this?
Thank you, Mayor. I move proposed motion item 5.2.3 that council form a position to support planning permit application T210338 for the use of the land for a food and drink premises, manufacturing, sales and sale and consumption of liquor, producer's licence in association with industry microbrewery, and a reduction of car parking requirements at LPS 815176, that being Unit 1, 9 South East Boulevard, Pakenham, on the following grounds. The proposal delivers on objectives for local employment opportunities to meet the needs of a growing residential population. The proposal helps to achieve Cardinia's strategic vision by enhancing the experience of people who live, work and visit the municipality. The proposal supports the diversification of industry through value-adding commercial activities. The proposal is well located on a key road within Southeast Business Park and provides an acceptable number of car parking spaces. Any adverse impacts of the proposal can be effectively managed via planning permit conditions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ross. I'll now go back to the mover to speak to this item first.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ross. I visited again the site today, and the area where this proposal microbrewery is going to go is an area there's plenty of access. It's in a group of factories, one of which is not being used, but I was there at lunchtime today and there was no vehicle comings and goings. The access is easy. It's going to support employment in the area. They plan to put a manager in at some stage when they get up and running, and I think it will be really good for the area. I noted there were 2 objections. One objection came from up the street, and I went to have a look for the address of that objector and could not even find the factory that the objection came from. And the other one was another factory down the road, and it was a vacant factory. So, and the objectors have not lodged any paperwork with VCAT to take the objections any further. So I think this is going to be good for the area. It's not going to hinder or impede any of the other factories during the daytime. Most of the factories close at 4 p.m. and they are wanting to start their service of food at 4 p.m. So Saturday mornings the other factories are closed, so they won't have any interaction with traffic coming for the other factories. And the other factories that are there are at this point in time running to full capacity. So they just come to pick things up. One's a warehouse, the other one is a bolts manufacturer or sales, and there's a plumber. So I'm very much in support of this application being approved for a decision of approval for the council tonight, and I ask my fellow councillors for their support in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. I'll go to the seconder, Councillor Ross, to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Cameron. I visited the site today to have a look. I must say I've spent many hours in that block of factories with my son learning to drive and my daughter learning to drive. I've been there in peak times, non-peak times, ran. We never left the estate until they were confident we could leave. I must say, looking at where it's positioned, it is a really big roundabout in the area. They have directly across from them another food place that sells breakfasts, morning teas, lunchtime. They're quite busy all the time. I haven't seen them have a problem, and they have trucks going everywhere and cars and the whole lot of it. This group don't operate during peak hours. They operate after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And when it comes to the parking, from what I had a look this morning at about 9 o'clock or 9:30, there was almost nobody using the front. There was nobody using the back. And from what I understand, all the people in the block haven't objected to it being there as well. And as we know through SEPTED, that it's really good to have active places used when all the other places are closed, having people coming and going. I must say as well, we do have quite a few precedences where we've had a reduction in car parking for exactly the same reasons. And in Lakeside, behind the Bendigo Bank where the big car park is there, we had in the past where several councillors and council staff went and did some numbers on the car parks that were being used at the time. And we discovered that the businesses who wanted to operate food things or restaurants or those sort of things, the car parks weren't being used in the off-peak hours, so therefore they're available. Now, technically someone would say, well, they need a reduction of car parking, but what they actually discovered was they weren't going to use all those car parks anyway, so it was a good use of them in the off-peak times. Considering I had a chat to Councillor Cameron, who I knew was going to looking at this space, saying that I wasn't sure what she was going to do with an alternate motion. But I must say, with an alternate motion, this is how planning applications work. If you go to VCAT, which has gone to VCAT because it's over 30 days, it either gets approved or it gets knocked back. Council has an opportunity to dictate some of the terms that we see as a bit of a concern with something like this. So by us approving things with some limitations in there, that gives us a little bit of control around what we see as concerns in the area. Because if you let the application go through in its full text, any concerns we have often get totally dismissed. They get 100% of what they're after, and we have no say in it at all. I think this is a really good compromise to let something that looks like it would be a real benefit to the area go through, but at the same time having a bit of a council's fingerprint on where our concerns are and where we believe the restrictions should be put in there with the application. Anyway, I know I've gone over probably 2 minutes anyway. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. I wasn't keeping check account. I was just listening avidly too, but well spoken, Councillor Ross. Councillor Owen, yes.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you to Councillor Cameron for this alternate motion. I'll be supporting it. I have read the officer's report, digested same, and also the objections and also the correspondence that we received from the applicant over many months regarding this. Similar to what Councillor Ross has said, I think it's great to have diverse uses within this employment precinct. To have that diversity of use is great. Activation is really key. Where most of the abutting properties are closed for the day, it's great to have something open, to have that surveillance to reduce crime in such areas. So I really support it. I think it's only a shortfall of 9 spaces as per the scheme, but I'm satisfied there's a sufficient enough of adjacent car parking in the area. It's supporting a local business that wants to grow. And I think in these times that we've just gone through for the last 2 years, I think that's something we can do if it's appropriate to do so. And I think it is appropriate to do so. I support your alternate motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. And I agree with everybody. And I thank you, Councillor Cameron, for bringing this up. I do congratulate the applicant for the information that went with the application as well as, and that's a perfect opportunity that's been taken to contact all councillors and reinforce your passion for what you want to do in your area. And I think that's a real highlight of what they've done there. It's a great example. And I support this. I do, and I support the businesses as the previous item as well to keep jobs alive and keep things moving along. The only hesitancy I have with this would be if the businesses around them, and I go to the bolt supplier who supplies the bolts, I go get my bolts from there, by the way, so I know the area quite well. The problem would be for me if it's going to restrict the businesses around there to change what they do within that building. And what comes to mind quite often in those areas, quite often they use them as a place of worship, and which really highlights a lot of car parking issues. And that's where the only thing that could happen in the future. I can't predict the future. I can predict a lot of things, but I can't predict the future. I'm not a magician. But there's just that's a possibility of what could happen in the future. But I think this is a great opportunity for us to assist a business in that area, and I think I'm all for it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I'm in support of this too, Councillor Cameron. A good report you've come back with, all the information, and easy to follow, especially people in the community having that good understanding of why we make decisions the way we do. I think that, again, having an opportunity to use a space that can be utilised in the evenings as well as during the daytimes. And as Councillor Owen pointed out, the safety issue is one of those things, and I think that covers it really well with having people coming and going. Again, a new business, a young business, gives the opportunity for people to be employed and from the business to grow from there. So I'm in total support. I don't have any issues with this. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? There being none, I'll go back to Councillor Cameron to summarise.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to thank all the councillors for their support and Councillor Ross for seconding. Just to allay your fears, Councillor Moore, they're around the corner and up the street, probably 3 or 4 factories is a place of worship. So, so just to allay your fears there. The young people that are wanting to start this, they have no backers, they're using all their own money, and I think it's just fantastic to see them having a go. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. We'll now put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that item carried. Thank you, councillors. Next up is item 5.3, T200644 PA, construction of a multi-storey apartment building at 4-22 Rushgate Street, Pakenham. Withdrawn by Councillor Ryan. Councillor Ryan, you have a motion that differs from the officer's recommendation. Can you move this motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor, through you. With this motion, item 5.3, that council issue a notice of refusal to grant a planning permit T200644 for the construction of a multi-storey apartment building at 4-22 Rushgate Street in Pakenham on the following grounds. The proposal represents an overdevelopment of the site and is not responsive to its surrounding context. The proposal does not contribute to the existing or preferred neighbourhood character of the area. The proposal will have unacceptable amenities, impacts on the surrounding area, including noise, overlooking and overshadowing. The proposal will result in unacceptable traffic and car parking impacts due to its resilience on a local access road and lack of on-street parking. I'll leave it at there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Cameron. I'll now go back to the mover, Councillor Ryan, to speak to this item.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron, for seconding this. I'm quite concerned about this. If around the station area and that used to be originally the old race course, the Pakenham race course is now being built up. And this is, there's other apartments there, around about 200 apartments at this stage. Now, this is going to be a 3-storey building, which concerns me because we're getting higher and higher. So it consists of 42 dwellings, 2-level basement garage, 44 parking bays, and a rooftop terrace. The ground floor has 13 apartments, 3 2-bedrooms, 10 1-bedrooms, and all with balconies that overlook onto the roadside. The second floor, 13 apartments, 7 1-bedroom apartments, 4 2-bedroom apartments, 2 3-bedroom apartments, again all with balconies. The rooftop communal facility has a barbecue and dining area and with a garden, and it has 21 bicycle parking spots as well. Some of the issues that I went there this morning and spoke with quite a few residents that are quite concerned about this building that may be built there, and parking is one of them from some of the other residents. There are single-storey residents amongst this building, where this building would be built, and they're concerned about on-street parking that will block some of their parking, so we could have a lot of parked cars on our nature strips. The street itself is quite small, so if 2 cars are parking on each side, there's not much room for a car to go down the centre, so that's another concern. The privacy overlooking impact on shadowing next door neighbours, and the traffic access and the safety. Some of the emergency services, they're quite concerned about that they may not get through if there's parking on both sides of the street. Some of the sunlight blocking their solar panels. Residents are very concerned about that because they've just paid out a lot of money to get their panels done, and that's a concern on its own. We talk about affordable living and the strategic affordability plan that we do have at council. Now, these rentals will start from $280 to $350 per week. So I wouldn't call that affordable for a lot of people. So I kind of argue that point with this, the affordability. But, you know, that's my opinion. I'm concerned for the residents that live there. They're the ones that have got to live there, and so I'm only voicing their opinion, and I hope that my councillors will follow suit and support this. And I'll leave it at there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. I'll go to the seconder, Councillor Cameron, to speak next.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll reserve my right to make a comment at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Councillor Kowaczyk.
Thank you, Mayor Springfield. I'd like to foreshadow a motion to approve this item as per the officer's recommendations in conjunction with the conditions as laid out in the report.
Thank you, Councillor Kowaczyk, for noting that. I'll ask any other councillors if they'd like to speak to this item. Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I do note Councillor Kowalczyk's foreshadowed motion, but I just want to speak to the current motion before us. So I thank Councillor Ryan for your passion in this space and speaking with your constituents in your ward. I do think it is appropriate development for this site. This site is located probably within 200 metres of the railway station, a major bus interchange. If you're going to have this type of housing, this is the best spot for it. Have this diversity of housing, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedrooms. Our housing policies, talk about the need for diverse housing. This will address and really help council commit to that policy and deliver on that policy. But it is the best location for this sort of development. It's right, also very close to this town centre, where public transport is great and so forth. Promoting walking to the shops, walking the public transport, etc., etc. So I will be supporting the foreshadowed motion if that gets through, because I think it is appropriate at this location. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. I also support the foreshadowed motion if it gets to that point, only because I agree with Councillor Owen in a big way, where the zoning of this area is there for giving us alternative different types of dwellings and different type of living. Not everybody wants to live on a large block of land and mow lawns and have those type of home types facilities. We've got to give our community alternative, different types of dwellings to live at, and that's why these zones are there. That's why they are close to major railway stations, and that's where the Garfield situation is quite a difficult one because of anything that's close to a major railway station. You're going to have developments such as these arise, and they're going to keep coming. They're not going to just go away because we decide that one development won't be there. They're going to keep coming because that's what those zones are for. And I know that the community, in a lot of ways, aren't happy about that racecourse estate because of that the size of the blocks and the size of the roads, etc. But that's what that zone allows them for. So I think it's well suited, this development, to go in this location. And have walking to the main shopping centre. I think it's going to support our local town of Pakenham. And we're talking about supporting businesses here and making them develop. And so we need to sometimes bring development like these. I know it becomes an intense community, and you've got a lot of groupings around that area, but unfortunately that's what sometimes we have to go through, and I think this would be the sort of thing that would come up to VCAT in a way and probably go through because of the zoning would suit. And I think this occasion the planners have got it right, and I have to support them in this manner. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. Speaking to this application, I must say, over my time on council, I've seen some of these sort of things go extremely pear-shaped. There's one set of units up in the Cardinia Lakes area, up around there, on a corner, and if you think about this, you're going to have 41 units. There'll be 82 bins going out at any one time, because if you put 2 bins out for your recycling and your there's 82 bins. And I've seen some of these things where they've got designated areas in the past where they're meant to put the bins. They never put the bins there. They put them out in the street. And there's a poor person who lives next door and he has 30 bins out the front of his house. And I've gone there and had a look at it, and the guy's got allergies and the whole lot of it. And they say, it's meant to, under the planning, you're meant to put your bins in there. They still don't put their bins in there. So, I mean, in these sort of things, in that small amount of area, to have potentially 82 bins every week. And if we go to a 3-bin system or a 4-bin system in the end, you're going to have a nightmare. You wouldn't want to live near there, I can tell you. And there's people who don't bring their bins in. We're not a council who prosecutes people who don't do this. We say, well, we've got to have a bit of give and take. Well, for the poor people who live there, this is not Dandenong. And Dandenong is an appropriate area for some of these things because that's the way they set it up. Pakenham is not set up that way. There's a lot of people there who are owner-occupiers who are very proud of their place, and they moved in and they were unaware that these sort of developments were going to come. Anyway, I say, well, if it goes through, I'll be redirecting people's complaints to those who support it, so therefore they can go and answer and see what they can do about the problems that are created. Anyway, everyone's got a vote. I've got my vote and everyone else has, so we've all got our chance to have our say. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Ross, would any other councillors like to speak to this item? Look, I will just, I'll say a few words. Look, unfortunately, I can't support the alternative motion. I think that as laid out by the planning officers, I think this is a good site for this development. It's just perfectly located. And if I look under the conditions, as Councillor Ross pointed out with the previous item, how we have conditions to put our thumbprint onto planning applications, there is condition here that says a bin storage area must be provided for the building and must be located so as not to be detrimental to the visual amenity of the neighbourhood to the satisfaction of the responsible authority. So I think that will be covered. But I think this is important to have this type of development in this area where you can have single one-bedroom units. We have a very lack of this diversity within the Shire to cater to people who are single people that can only afford a small dwelling like that. So it's right next to the train station. I do understand the community sentiment that some people don't want to see development. They've currently had a vacant lot right there for many years, and it's probably been quite good to achieve that and have that as your neighbourhood. But I think it is appropriate development to go at this site. So furthermore, before I go back to the mover to summarise, I'll go to the seconder, Councillor Cameron, who has reserved her right to speak. So, Councillor Cameron, if you'd like to speak at this time.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you everybody else for sharing your thoughts on this matter. I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Ryan and Councillor Ross have said. Traffic would be a concern to me if I was a resident in that area, and the bins would certainly be a big concern to me. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. I'll go to the mover, Councillor Ryan, to summarise.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you to all the councillors that have given all your opinion. It's always good to hear a debate, and I think the community needs to hear us have these debates, that we're all passionate in our own ways and about our community. Yes, certainly the bins will be an interesting thing to happen. So if this goes through, I will be watching those bins and reassuring residents too. And look, we know there's a need for it, but I don't want to see it get to the stage that it's like Carlton or Fitzroy, where the buildings get higher and higher and higher, because we are a small area. Even though we are growing, we will never be a city-type environment. So when these apartments start happening, 3-storey, okay, if it goes ahead, well, we have to accept that. But I'm concerned about residents and their mental health and well-being, and the effect it has on them, not knowing that this was going to happen in the future when they bought their properties or when they moved into their properties if they're renting. So as a councillor, I have to listen to their concerns and I have to relay their concerns, whether it goes against what the officers have reported. And thank you to the officers. I must admit they have done a great report and a great understanding to really look into it and then go on site and have a look. And that's our job as councillors. We don't just sit and read. We go out there, we go on site, we have a look, we talk to our community and we listen to their concerns, and then we make a decision. Are we going to stand in this room on our own, making a decision totally against all other councillors' decisions? And that's a debate. That's a wonderful debate. So I thank everybody again for your support in even giving your opinion. I value every councillor that sits here, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Ryan, we'll now put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. All those against? All those against, please. All right. Now let's start that again. Councillors, all those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you. All those against, please raise your hands. I declare that carried. Councillor Ross has called for a division, so all those in favour, please stand. I note Councillor Ryan, Councillor Ross and Councillor Cameron. All those against, please stand. And I note Councillor Moore, Councillor Owen, Councillor Kowalczyk, Councillor Radford and Councillor Springfield. Thank you. I will now go to Councillor Kowalczyk, who has foreshadowed the officer's recommendations. And Councillor Kowalczyk, if you would like to move that motion, please.
Thank you, Mayor Springfield. I move the officer's recommendations based on the report in conjunction with the conditions, and I won't read them out because there's over 30.
Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Radford. I'll go back to Councillor Kowalczyk to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor Springfield, and thank you to Councillor Tammy Radford for your second. I just want to respond to the comments raised in the previous item by Councillor Ross respectfully regarding the 82 bins comment In the report, it's noted that there's a private waste contractor, so the bins will be stored in the basement, and it's a private waste contractor because council has noted, due to the diligent work of our planning department, that it'd be too much for our own waste contractor and ordinary wheelie bins to have them out there. So this is a bit of a different and unique setup with regards to the bins, so hopefully that allays your concerns, Councillor Ross, with regards to that. The reason this item is before us tonight and the decision has not been made under delegation is because of the number of objectors, of which there's 5. So it's reached that trigger point where it needs to come to council. The report goes into detail. There's a section where it responds to the objections, and I encourage anyone in the community who feels strongly about this development to read that section of the report between pages 788 and 792, which details responses to the objectors and I think pretty well covers off those points raised. I respect your position, Councillor Ryan, and thank you for raising your motion before. But I think we do have to be more aware and be able to provide smaller and more affordable living spaces for a number of residents in Cardinia Shire. I think our residents are crying out for it. Councillor Owen touched on it before. We have a number of housing policies, and if we are ever going to aim to address, to fill that void of the 1 to 2 bedroom apartments, it sort of has to happen in this location. And I know that's a little bit contentious because it's different from the past. And whenever you come up to something that's new, and this is the first time we've sort of had a 3-storey apartment complex like this, I understand it's going to be a little bit contentious, but it's absolutely vital for the future of Pakenham and the future of our residents that if they are crying out for a 1-bedroom place to live, that we provide that. So yeah, I'm obviously supportive of the application. Given its proximity to Pakenham Town Centre, it's within walking distance to the recently approved activity centre zone, which along with the comprehensive development zone anticipates and encourages high density developments, given the good access to infrastructure and services. Now, Councillor Ryan also touched on the number of units and bedrooms and was concerned about car parking, and that's obviously a legitimate concern. Based on the report, there's 44 car parks required and 49 will be provided. So there's 5 extra car parks there, which I know is not a great deal, but 5 extra that are provided that didn't have to be. So from my perspective, I think that's a good planning outcome. Obviously very close to public transport. The structure plan that this development is within allows 3 to 4-storey developments. So I think to get away with a 3-storey development here is a reasonable outcome, given that potentially can be allowed to go as high as 4 stories. And I would just like to note there are already 3-storey townhouses within this very estate. They may not be directly next to this unit, they're more spread out, but there's 3-storey townhouses already there. Now, I mentioned this when I was withdrawing this item. There's 31 conditions attached to this item. And I've spoken to the planners about this because I was initially concerned, but there's 31 conditions with a number of subsections under each condition. And that means that council has a role to play in ensuring that that building complies with all those conditions. The flip side of that is if we refuse this, it's very likely to go to VCAT and be approved, given the dwelling is within the constraints of the relevant planning acts. And the planning permit may be granted with differing conditions if it goes to VCAT or none at all. So it's something we have to be aware of. And I know that all councillors know that, but some in the community may not know that. But that's certainly something that you may approve something that you're not 100% on board with, but you're comfortable with the set of conditions that it comes with. I think I'll leave it at that, Mayor, and allow my other councillors some opportunity to speak to this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk. I'll go to Councillor Radford to speak next. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk, for foreshadowing this. I think you've summarised that really, really well, and I'm in support of everything that you have said. I just wanted to add that it has been a very well thought out design and does fall within the strategic plan of that area, which would have been available. We do need to do our due diligence when we're purchasing in an area to see what is around. But there is, where this set of townhomes are, they're all blocked in together. There's Mudlark Avenue, I think it's called, that goes around. So there's a road that's going right around this development as well, which separates it from overshadowing right onto somebody's backyard. It's not going to. There is a road there. So I'm very happy with what's been thought here and how it looks. It's close proximity to amenities. It's providing a diverse accommodation for different needs and for different purposes, which we need more of. And to be frank, we're growing. We are growing. We're going to have to start going up a little bit at some point. I don't see anywhere in the future where we may be going to major high apartment stories in this area of Pakenham, but we do need to consider going up a little bit to support the high amount of growth that is coming into our Shire. So I'm 100% supportive of the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Radford. I'll go to Councillor Ross next to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. If I can just ask one of the managers in relation to what's going to happen to the hard waste for this, is it still going to be stored downstairs with the other bins? What's going to happen with the hard waste?
Through you, Mayor, I'll need to take that question on notice, but I would assume that there would be processes that would be available to the body corporate to sort of manage the collection of hard waste. That's certainly been my experience in other multi-unit development spaces.
Thank you. I just thought I'd ask because understanding that they're going to collect it downstairs and it's going to be a private collection of all the other waste. I'm just wondering with 41 units with hard waste, how that would quite work. Because I know even with single-storey normal streets, you finish up with a whole lot, sort of people park it out there. Anyway, I thought I'd ask the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Do any Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor. What a great debate. Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk, and thank you, Councillor Ryan, of course, for your initial alternative motion. It's a great debate in Council, and I do look forward to those debates we have. As Councillor Kowalczyk mentioned, and it is a big point when you've got a lot of conditions on a application, that if it goes to VCAT, those conditions get thrown away, and we start again. And what happens? It allows just about anything can be done by the applicant. And we know as councillors, I want to tell the residents this, that applicants sometimes set it up beautifully so they can go to VCAT and come back and they can do what they want with an application under our guard, and so therefore it's unfair. So that's just something that we should be noted of. A couple of things are, as I said before, these type of developments they've got a varied lifestyle option. That's what they have. What about the first homeowners, buyers today? How are they going to buy the first home as we know it as a property with a house on it and the block of land and whatever as the Australian dream has been? How do they do it today? They don't. They have to do these type of systems, and these are really set up for first home owners. They're set up for young couples just setting off, and so therefore they're a first development of these things. So we've got to give them those opportunities to have those things. And being close to a local railway station like it is, a major one, they use a lot of public transport. A lot of them don't have cars even. They can't afford cars to have on the road. Who could afford petrol today, if I ask you? So to afford a car and have a property as well as, they don't have the parking issues that we would think about normally in a normal residential block. So when we have these high density, and they are high density housing, I admit to it, I agree, they are. And that's what we're going to have in a lot of places. And I know that's like Dandenong and whatever we're talking about, that sort of thing, but Pakenham is developing into those sort of areas. We are getting into that region. So we have to start growing with that as we grow with our community, and I think that's why this sits very well with me to be in that area. So we can have this in this location. I fully agree, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Do we have any other? Councillor Owen.
Yeah, thank you. I will be supporting and putting my hand up for this alternate motion at the right time. Just regarding density, I know a number of councillors talked about it. Reading from the report, a number of objections raise issues of the increased number of people that the apartment-style dwellings would attract to the area. Whilst it may seem that 42 dwellings on the site is excessive compared to 10 conventional single dwellings, and that's what the maps show, that they are 10 lots, that could also have been constructed if 10 conventional single townhouses were constructed and each were provided with an average of 3 to 4 bedrooms. This still allows the possibility of between 40 to 50 people to live in the townhouses on the site. Generally speaking, one-bedroom apartments attract singles. Not always, but generally. And while some may attract couples when combined with the general number of people that may reside in 2 and 3 bedroom apartments, this is not as drastic an increase in the potential number of people living in the apartment building as perceived. So I think this sort of development is well coordinated, appropriately deals with waste and car parking. We see significant underground car parking or lower level car parking. It is coordinated, that there is a coordinated approach to it. Often you see, if you've got 10 houses, you do have issues with waste. You have issues with car parking on the street, but this is a well thought out, coordinated development, in my opinion. It also has lifts. For those people who are got a disability or access is a problem, by having a lift in this development, I think that is great. It provides people an option of accessing these apartments. So I'm aware of similar developments outside Cardinia that are, in my opinion, in the middle of nowhere near public transport, and I think that is inappropriate. But this is very close to public transport, very close to activity centre, so I will support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, you all know what I'm going to say. I have to go with what I was saying in the beginning. Thank you, Councillor Kowalski, because valid points, and they were points that I read intensely. So it's not like I haven't read the report. I went from every angle I could. I suppose the biggest thing at the moment is the reminder is that public transport around here is not that great at the moment. There's a redevelopment of the station, Pakenham Station, so there'll be buses coming and going to taking people back and forth to travel to work. There's also the bus line. It's an hour wait for each bus in between. That's a long time, and I know that in planning, we have talked about the improvements, and they will come with the new station when that's redeveloped. But at the moment, we don't have that public transport working the way it is. Some of these apartments too, you buy these apartments, they're just as expensive as buying a house with land, some of them, depending on where they are. Probably not so much in Pakenham. They'll be a lot cheaper in Pakenham. But they are expensive for some people, but I've got to look at all angles, and but I do appreciate every councillor's opinion again and again. I'm just doing debates here and giving the passion and the thoughts behind the residents that live there. I don't have to live there, you don't have to live there, they have to live there, and that's why I'm voicing their opinion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? Before going back to the mover, I'll just add my 2 cents in, which, again, as I spoke earlier, I do support this proposal. It seems the number of conditions really does seem like we get to have some good control about the outcome to make sure this is the best outcome for the development of this site in this area. And just noting in the report, as listed in the report, there won't be an issue with 82 amount of bins. There will be a total of 7 1,100 litre and 2 660 litre bins, which will be provided and stored in level 1 of the basement, and a chute system will provide access from each level to the bins in the basement. Bins will be rotated by the owner's corporation when the bins are full and wheeled to the bin store area on the ground floor of the level to be collected by the private waste collector. So I think hopefully residents can feel rest assured that there won't be any bins out the front of clogging up the roadway, because that would be an issue if there was 82 bins out the front of that roadway. I imagine so. But look, I also note that parking I don't think will be an issue. There's 5 extra car parks provided beyond what is required by the planning scheme. So I think this, for my peace of mind, this meets all the requirements necessary to provide a good outcome for diverse housing in our community. I'll now go to the mover, Councillor Kowaczyk, to summarise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Springfield, and also for your comments. Thank you to all my fellow councillors who spoke to this item, both in the previous discussion and now, both for and against. I know this is a difficult decision for many councillors, and I appreciate their contribution to this debate. The proposed development, comprising a 3-storey, 42-dwelling apartment building, has been located within an activity centre and a location which is outlined in the former Pakenham Comprehensive Development Plan from February 2010, encourages multi-storey high-density development. So we've known this has been on the cards for over 12 years. The site is well located to the Pakenham Activity Centre zone, which provides access to community, health services, retail and transport options within walking distance. It provides for an alternative to the single-dwelling housing stock in the immediate area, which will in turn increase housing affordability and provide more diversity in an extremely accessible location. This is not to say there won't be challenges, but I think it's important to recognise the proposed quality of this build, the services and the amenities that this proposal offers. It's certainly unique and something we haven't seen in Cardinia before. I hope my fellow councillors support this motion tonight in line with the officer's recommendations, subject to the conditions mentioned in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kowaczyk. I will now put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. All those against, please raise your hand. I declare that carried. Thank you. Councillor Ryan has called for a division, so all those in favour, please stand. And I note Councillor Moore, Councillor Owen, Councillor Kowaczyk, Councillor Radford and Councillor Springfield. You may seat. Those against, please stand. And I note Councillor Ryan, Councillor Ross and Councillor Cameron. Thank you. That concludes discussion of the items withdrawn. Are there any matters listed in the agenda that you would also like to wish to debate? Please note them now. There being nothing, and I will move on. And if not, then can I have a mover, please? Okay, I think we don't need to adopt the... Oh, yes, sorry. Excuse me. If not, can I have a mover, please, to adopt the officer's recommendations for the remaining items? Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Kowaczyk. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that carried. Thank you. That concludes tonight's meeting. Thank you for your interest and for your attention and for your robust debate, councillors. I now declare the meeting closed. Thank you.